The hot days of summer, back in the 30s. Now here's another little episode of the Little Rebel of the Gap, which is my dad, and he was raised in a place called Cumberland Gap here. And he told me so many stories. Now this is what the Gap looked like from the pinnacle, back in the 30s. It's a place where Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia comes together. Ain't hard to find on a map. And in the foreground, a place called Tipper. That's where he growed up, just outside of the Gap, which is all the same area anyway. And this is Tipper looking back towards the saddle of the Gap, Cumberland Gap. The old wilderness road come through there. It's an old place of history. And he was raised here with 11 brothers and sisters in a little home like this. Didn't have much of nothing. In the little old town itself of Cumberland Gap, there might have been a few hundred people there. Everybody knowed everybody, and everybody knowed everybody's business too. All roads come through here. Had a little gas station, a diner, a few little general stores, and that's about it. Now the countryside, looking south from the Gap down into Powell Valley or up into Virginia, this is what the countryside looked like. Just farmland. Just rolling hills against the mountains, little farms. Now this was a time during the Depression when there was hard times because nobody had no job. And the dad, he said when he growed up, he worked when he's 10 years old, working in these cornfields, making a few dollars here and a few dollars there, but he didn't make but a quarter a day, he said, in the early summer. And in the late summer, when the backers started to come in, that's when he made a little bit better money to take home for the family. And it was hard work back in them days. Most of the old farmers didn't have tractors then. They was just really coming out, and they couldn't afford them no way. So they done everything the old-fashioned way. A team of mules or horses, and done it the hard way. But he said they didn't have no money, these farmers, but when he worked for them, he ate good. Better than he ever did at home. They fed him good. And he loved that. But one time he wasn't working on the farm, he was with his friends and his buddies. He was always cobbling or into something or making something, playing ball games or something. He used to tell me so many little stories. And they'd work this little old creek that come out of the Gap called Gap Creek. Come out of Cumberland Mountain, come out of the cave, and they'd play in this creek and fish and hunt turtles. Now, people don't believe this much, but when he was young, he had a little old pet hog he got, a little piglet at the time. It was a runt, and he raised it. And they always kept a bunch of old hunting dogs. And these old dogs, they accepted this pig, and this pig growed up thinking it was a dog. That hog would always seem to want to go hunting with him. He'd have to run it back home. But he said that hog would try to jump rabbits for him. I thought that was so funny. But that's a true story. In these hot summer days, they would have a favorite swimming hole down here at Gap Creek where it widened out a little bit deeper. And they would wear it out. Loved to go swimming on these hot summer days. Well, they went down there one day. There was a big oil film on the water. Gasoline, they could smell it. Well, somebody's tank had leaked out of town into the creek. Well, they thought they had the bright idea that they'll just burn that off and then go back to swimming. And when they struck that match, it just basically exploded. It just run across the top of that water everywhere it was around the edge and around the edge of the forest. And it was catching everything on fire. They was about to burn the forest and the town down. They had every fire truck in the surrounding communities there trying to put that out. But I got a story on that you can see. But their idea of the 4th of July didn't have no such thing as fireworks. Their idea was getting out there shooting their shotguns or having a shooting match. But one thing they did do, they loved watermelons. But watermelons wasn't plentiful around here because the farmers didn't grow them. There just wasn't no market for them here. They didn't grow good in this climate. And he'd watch them. He said when he's young, them big truckloads coming from the south, out of Georgia, hauling them up into Kentucky. And all roads back then come through the Gap. Now, this is what the Gap's roads look like nowadays. 25E goes through a tunnel. It don't go across the mountain anymore. And here's what the roads used to look like back in the day. Before the tunnel, it went across Cumberland Mountain into the Cumberland Gap, called Massacre Mountain. And this is what the roads look like. And every little old road seemed like back then went through every little community, every little stop sign, red light, until they bypassed it. And the Gap's no different. Now here they delivered some watermelons one time, and the boys was down there at the store, and that guy didn't have no help, so he wanted to give them some help. He said he'd pay them 50 cents a piece, the 4 of them, if they'd help him unload these watermelons. So that was a deal. So they jumped on it. But at the end of the day, when they unloaded these watermelons, he only gave them a quarter apiece. Well, them boys resented that. But they'll get even with him, he said. So they knowed he had to come back. And there's an old man outside of town, had a bunch of old mules and donkeys and horses. And he probably was one of the first record services in the country around the area when the old automobiles was coming out, and they knowed that he hauled shine out of these mountains for these men too. But that was just stuff they kept to themselves. And like I said, he had a bunch of old mules here and donkeys, and some of them were really lazy. They always noticed it when they worked around these farms. He had one that just absolutely would take a spell. It would not move. You could take some apples and get it to move, but that's about it. And he had it in town one time, and he just sat down in the road and blocked the road for a long time. People were trying to go around him. So aggravating. But anyway, they noticed that truck was coming in. The old store manager told them that he was expected in that day. So they got that mule ready sitting outside the edge of town. And when he come through, they just set that mule right in the road where they know he had to come through. And that mule just sat down. Well, then they waited for that guy to get out of that truck and start jerking that mule out of the road so he could get by. That's when they got to unloading that thing. He said they got at least 6 watermelons. They got their money's worth of what he cheated them out of it, because watermelons were about a quarter apiece back then. And when he left, they snuck them down to the creek, put them in that cold water, let them sit for the rest of the day. And they come back the next day, and they had a feast. They enjoyed these watermelons. He said that was the sweetest tasting watermelons he had ever tasted. Don't know because he got them, how he got them, or just the taste of them. But he said they eat on them for all week long, as many as they got out of them. Well, these are just little stories of the little rebel of the Gap. He growed up in some hard times, but they were simple times. And he showed me so many stories. You can go back and see these on the playlist of Little Rebel of the Gap. So I hope you enjoy this. Have a happy 4th of July. God bless. take care, and I'll